Awesome. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and get things going here. I'm super happy to be working with you guys today. My name is Ash Trosh. I'm National Sales Trainer for SolarEdge. Today, what I've got prepared for you is I want to go over some of the advantages of SolarEdge's technology, as well as digging into some specifics about the battery, specifically in the consumption-only setup, and how it relates to NIM3 to get you guys some information on that. As we go through this, I want to encourage you, if you have questions, feel free to give questions as we go. Would love to gear this training around what you're looking to learn today. So let's get things started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, where does SolarEdge have the advantage when we're looking at us versus the competition? And there's a couple places that are very, very specific advantages, especially when we're looking at a battery environment. So first off, it's talking about our architecture. And architecture with solar inverters can be a bit of a history lesson, because we start way back on the string inverter. String inverters were kind of the first to market inverter architecture, and string inverters are still going today. We've got things like the Tesla Powerwall Plus is still a string inverter, but there's a major limitation to these string inverters, even though they are an affordable solution, and that's that they're limited to their lowest producing module on a string. Uh, a good way to think about it, if you're like me and you used to help your dad put up Christmas lights when you were a kid, you always had that one bulb that was out somewhere on the string and it made the whole string go dead. That's kind of a good comparison to what happens with string inverters. So even though it's a low cost option, unfortunately, if there's any sort of shading, any sort of obstructions for a homeowner, not typically a good solution. Next thing that happened in the solar industry were microinverters. And microinverters, they solved that problem where whole panels would go out due to shading, because they're operating at a panel level. There's a tiny inverter on the back of each solar panel. Now, the downside to this is that with solar panel wattage on the rise, microinverters are having a little bit of trouble keeping up with the amount of wattage that a modern solar panel has. In general, in the industry, typically we're using anywhere from 350 to 400 watt modules now. And the average microinverter that is paired with these modules converts about 290 watts of power. So that means that we can't get the maximum power out of each and every module. Any excess energy that exceeds the continuous power rating of a microinverter, since it's converting power on the panel level, that energy is getting clipped. So where does SolarEdge fit into the equation? You may have guessed, we aimed to get the best out of both of those technologies without the downside of those technologies. So how our setup looks is, we have an optimizer on every single panel that's helping those panels to operate independently, so that we don't suffer from the shading issues that string inverters have. But at the same time, we have a centralized inverter so we can convert and keep more of that power. I know this might be a review for some of you, and for some of you, you might be hearing this for the first time, but I wanted to reinforce that this is one of the major advantages that we have. Another huge advantage is just this whole ecosystem of products that we offer, because it's important to know when you're continuing to add smart devices in this age of add-ons. Each and every product that you have is going to work together. So that's from the power optimizers up on the roof, helping those panels operate independently. We've got the inverter, which is a fully flexible inverter, and you can actually, on the SolarEdge Home Hub inverter, you can wire all of our smart devices into it in order to save you space in the main service panel. We've got our SolarEdge Home battery, which we're going to talk about a lot today, but what I'll say here is you can stack up to 3 of those per Home Hub inverter. Our SolarEdge Home backup interface, great solution for those that are looking for backup power. We've got the SolarEdge Home EV charger, which is a fully flexible EV charger that can charge any EV on the market, and you can put it in solar boost mode to charge your car just on the excess solar power if you want to. We've got other smart energy devices. Some of them are already beginning to hit our price list and will be coming out soon. One of those that I'd like to call out here is the SolarEdge load controller, which helps you control the way that the heavy loads in your home work in the event of a blackout. Everything here is put together on the My SolarEdge app. You can control and manage all of these devices from one convenient app. And this is a benefit that really speaks to my heart because I have a lot of smart devices in my home. Each one is a different app on my cell phone, and I forget what controls what at this point. And I imagine that at least a few of the homeowners that you speak with are going to feel the same way. So let's get into the stats of our SolarEdge home battery because I know a lot of us are looking for help with this battery. They're looking for where we have the advantage with the battery. Here's the specs. It's a 9.7 kilowatt hour battery. It's actually a 10 kilowatt hour battery, but we hold zero point 0.3 in the battery at all times just for the health of the lithium ion battery. It has a 5 kilowatt continuous power and 100% depth of discharge. So this means that you can use all 9.7 kilowatt hours of that battery. Since it is a DC coupled battery, it has a highly efficient energy storage. It's a 94.5 round trip efficiency. We achieve that by minimizing conversions of energy, and we'll show you in just a moment how that works. We have an industry leading 10-year warranty. There are longer warranties on the market, but what's important about ours, especially in California, is that um, is that we do not limit cycles or throughput on our battery. So within that 10 years, your homeowner has the reassurance that they're going to be able to use that battery the way that they want to use that battery without going out of their warranty period. And after the 10 years has concluded, we guarantee a 70% capacity retention after that 10-year warranty period. You can stack multiple of these batteries per inverter, so up to 3 per inverter. You can go up to 9 per home, so maximum of 3 inverters. This is an easy, flexible installation. It can be installed indoor, outdoor. You can install it on the floor or a wall-mounted system as well. And the floor mounting is a good thing that can save a homeowner a lot of space if they're in a limited space scenario. One thing that's super important to call out about our battery is the safety concern or certifications rather. You can be sure to let your customer know they don't need to be concerned about the safety of this battery. We have UL 9540A certification for our battery, which is the highest safety certification that is available to a solar battery. We got there by making sure when we were designing this battery that we were speaking to the concerns that homeowners have. So we designed it with a built-in array of multi-point temperature sensors to help mitigate the risk of the battery overheating. And also, we have continuous protection through the measurement and monitoring of battery currents and voltage levels. In both cases, if the temperature looks like it's getting too hot, the battery is going to shut down. If the voltage looks like it's coming out to a risk of an overcurrent, the battery is going to shut down. So the big takeaway for us here when we're speaking to customers is you can help those customers rest assured that this battery is going to be as safe or more safe than any other device that they have in their garage. So we talked about the advantage of DC coupling, and I just wanted to put that on the screen. That way we can kind of walk through this. What I mean by DC coupled is our battery is actually on the DC side of the line. It sits before the inverter on the line. The strength in this is that we're minimizing the number of times we need to convert energy between the roof and the home. With our system, the only time that energy is getting converted is by the inverter right before it goes into the home. When you're looking at an AC coupled battery solution, you're seeing 3 conversions of energy. This is happening because you convert at the inverter. As it goes to the battery, the power's already in AC. You can't store power in AC. So there's actually a little inverter inside of the battery itself that's going to convert it back into DC power. Then as it's coming out of the battery to be usable by the home, it has to swap it back to AC. So that's 3 conversions on the way to the home. And conversions of energy are just like your favorite hoodie. Every time you put it in the wash, it's going to lose a little bit of color. How much does that equate to for a homeowner? Well, it's up to 10% more power by using the SolarEdge DC coupled battery system. We talked about this briefly earlier as well, but we smartly designed our technology to help you save space in the main service panel. Uh, what we did is we made it to where every smart device that we offer wires directly into the SolarEdge Home Hub inverter. So you can have up to 3 batteries, an EV charger, and your PV system, and they're all just sitting on the one breaker that's for the inverter in your main service panel. When you look at AC coupled solutions, unfortunately, it's not the same. Every single device that you install is going to take up its own breaker space in the main service panel. And this is up to including if you add more than one battery, you might be taking more than one battery for space in the main service panel. And in a lot of cases, a lot of homeowners don't have a lot of space left in their main service panel, and this can help you. This can lead you to having to do service or even replace that main service panel. This is another game changer, and it's that we have the ability with our SolarEdge Home Hub inverter and our SolarEdge Home battery to oversize the inverter by up to 200%. Now, in a lot of cases, you wouldn't want to oversize an inverter by this much. Can anybody in the audience tell me why you normally wouldn't want to oversize an inverter by that much? The main answer to that is because of energy clipping. Typically, if you oversize an inverter by that much, you're going to see a ton of clipping. The good news is that with our system, since the battery sits on the DC side of the line, we have more flexibility with what happens with that power. If the power is going to be clipped by the inverter, we can actually send it back to the battery and store it in the battery so that the homeowner can still take advantage of that energy. With an AC coupled solution, unfortunately, you can't do this. That power is just going to end up getting clipped. So, also, everything being connected on that My SolarEdge app, having one app that allows you to control everything in your home, having that right ecosystem is incredibly important. There's other brands that you can think of that people buy for that ecosystem, knowing that their entire suite of products is going to work together. The big call out for other companies that are like that is Apple. They're not the cheapest provider on the market, but people buy their technology to know that everything that they're buying is going to work together. That's a strong benefit, is knowing that the technology that you buy, it's all going to work together. And if you do have a problem or you have a question, there's one single company to reach out to talk to them about your products. Our battery is actually optimized for the California market. And the reason for that is because we have that high efficiency, which gives us up to 10% or 10 days of additional power every single year. We can capture that clipped energy with that oversizing. We can fully discharge the battery during the high rate periods, and we're going to cover that in just a moment here, show you how that works too. We have that unlimited cycle count. So for those customers that are discharging and charging that battery every single day, or even more than once a day in some cases, they're going to be able to stay within their warranty period. And also, we have smart technology built into our battery. We have profiles set up for all the major utilities in California, which includes PG&E, SDG&E, and SCE. And this is going to tell that battery when to charge and when to discharge based on those rate structures when it's most advantageous. So the homeowner is going to be able to get the maximum from their battery without them having to program it. It's a hassle-free experience both for the installer and for the customer. And if that homeowner needs a backup system, we've got them covered for that too, because our backup interface has a lot of strength. It's an automatic, it provides automatic backup power, so it serves as an auto transfer switch in the event of a grid interruption. It supports multi-inverters up to 3, so we can support up to 9 batteries on one single backup interface, which gives you a total storage capacity of 88.2 kilowatt hours or 30 kilowatt of backup. You can control the disconnection of loads from the home in backup mode. So it's got the auto transfer switch. It's up to 200 amp is what we can support, and it's rated for service side connection. So basically, this is a one box solution for that all of the homeowner's backup needs. It's got the energy meter, it's got the built-in auto transformer, and it's an easier installation overall. A big question we get when we're talking about a backup scenario is how many batteries do I need for my homeowner's situation? Well, the answer isn't completely clear on this. What I would recommend first off is if you're not using the SolarEdge Designer tool, you can take your customer's exact consumption profile into the SolarEdge Designer tool, and that'll give you a recommendation on how many batteries you need based on your exact customer situation. But in general, after you've had that needs assessment with the homeowner and you find out what their need is around batteries, what they're looking to back up in the home. If the answer is that they're looking to back up their AC and every single device in their home, that's probably going to be 3 or more batteries to enable whole home backup. And even then, conservation is key. A good way to discuss this with homeowners is everybody understands a cell phone battery, and a cell phone battery is just like a lithium ion battery. If you're using that cell phone just to make calls and texts, that's probably going to last all day. But if you're using it to watch YouTube videos for the entire day, it's going to run out a lot faster. So even in a whole home battery situation, whole home backup situation, conservation is still going to be key. If the homeowner is looking to maybe back up a smaller air conditioning or heat pump unit under 3 ton, and beyond that, they just want to keep the lights on. They just want to keep their fridge on so they're not going to have their food go bad. In a lot of cases, we can get by with 2 batteries in those scenarios. And if they're just looking for essential loads, hey, we want to keep the fridge on, we want to make sure that we have some lights, and maybe we can use our computer to work while the grid is out. In a lot of cases, they can get by with 1 battery in that scenario. All right, so just want to stop quickly to see if there are any questions at this point. I see that we do have a question in the chat regarding specs. What is the max peak power rating? Gonna look to Alex. Alex, do you happen to have that info on hand? I think we're talking about the battery.
I do not. Give me a second. I can pull it up for you right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have the spec sheets open up, and I'm out of screens to open it up. So give us just a second. We'll get an answer for that. While we're getting that answer, any other questions at this time? Customer support number. Yeah, absolutely. We will get that provided to you, Robert, by the end of the call. All right, team. While Alex is looking up that answer for the max peak power rating, we will go ahead and continue on. So now let's talk about NIM 3 specifically. And the first thing to talk about is acknowledging what has changed, because we know the market early this year is a lot different than it is now. So some of the things that have changed is, number one, the export rates, and this is the most important thing that's changed. Now the export rates are based on hourly values. They change per month. They change weekends versus weekdays. And in general, across the board, they're lower than they were before. NIM 3 is a 9-year term instead of a 20-year term. So when a customer signs into NIM 3, they're only locked into it for 9 years as opposed to 20. The true-up bills monthly and not annually. And how this affects our customers is if they owe the utility at the end of the month, they have to pay that amount immediately. But credits will continue to transfer over month to month, just like they did before. Oversizing is permitted by no more than 50% above their previous 12 months of usage. So when we're looking at their previous 12 months of usage, we can only go up to 150% based on that number. So what I'm showing here on this screen is our new an example of our new hourly export rate. All of the utilities are the same, but this particular example is a PG&E weekend schedule. One thing to point out when you're looking at all of these rates across the board, it's difficult to find a time that it's even paying back 5 cents per kilowatt hour. 10 cents a kilowatt hour is even harder to find. So these are much lower rates than export rates than we had previously. What does this mean? This means that the goal with our solar system has changed. Since we're not going to be getting value out of sending energy back to the utility grid, self-consumption is going to be the key. We want to touch the utility grid as little as possible with our customer solar systems. So we're looking to provide power during the day from the solar system and then provide power from the battery in the evening. That way, we're neither pushing energy back to the grid or taking energy from the grid. But one thing I did want to point out here is if we look at September, which is just about to pass, but we had this kind of golden time in September, the hours between 5 and 7 for 2 hours. The utilities are paying back almost $3 a kilowatt hour to push energy back to the utility grid. So because that time of the month is really, really beneficial, 2 days every day of the month, or 2 hours every day of the month, we want to make sure our homeowners can take maximum advantage of those times. Before we dig into the specific technology setups, I want to cover some scenarios because I know that we have customers out there still that are under NIM 2 that might be looking to make changes to their system, but they could be hesitating because they're unsure if they're going to be able to stay in NIM 2 or if they're going to move into NIM 3 based on what they're looking to add to the system. So we've got some specific scenarios, and let's see what you guys think on these ones. So let's say that we have a homeowner that has our SolarEdge Home Hub inverter, and they're just looking to add a battery to the existing system. From the audience here, do we think that that would put them into NIM 3, or would that customer be able to stay in NIM 2 with that situation? All right, we got Hunter saying they're going to stay in NIM 2. We got Tony saying NIM 3. Billy's giving us 2. Robert's saying 2. All right, I can give an answer. That's simple. We're actually going to stay in NIM 3, or sorry, NIM 2 in that scenario. To reiterate, because I had a little hiccup there, this homeowner would stay in NIM 2. Because NIM 2 incentivizes batteries, you can add that battery and backup interface without moving them out of NIM 2. Awesome. Great job, team. The next one, let's say our homeowner has an HD Wave solar-only inverter and they want to add a SolarEdge home battery. So what this means is that since they want to add a SolarEdge home battery, they have to replace their HD Wave inverter for a SolarEdge Home Hub inverter. In this scenario where they need to replace the inverter in order to install a battery, what do we think? Will they stay in NIM 2, or are they going to progress into NIM 3 in this scenario? Oops, sorry about that, team. Billy says he doesn't want to guess and be wrong. That's all right, Billy. There's no losers or winners here. It's just to see where we're at. We've got one guess at NIM 3. We got one guess at NIM 2. I'm gonna stop saying names here in case people are afraid to be wrong. All right, team. Well, this one's not as straightforward, but the answer is that they're going to be in NIM 2 as long as they don't change the size of their inverter. If they're changing out that HD Wave inverter for a home hub of the same size, they're going to stay in NIM 2. They can add that backup and battery, that backup interface and battery. They'd still be grandfathered into NIM 2. Great job. This one's the most confusing of the 3 scenarios. So let's say that they've got a home hub inverter or an HD Wave, and they want to expand their system. So they want to add more solar panels and they want to add a battery. What do we think on this one? Are they going to be able to stay in NIM 2 or move into NIM 3? I see some NIM 3 answers already. Going to give a couple more people the chance to take a swing at this, and then we'll go over the answer. What do we think, team? NIM 2 or NIM 3 for this homeowner? All right. We have someone saying that they're going to combine both and make a NIM 5. Love it. All right, team. Well, the answer to this one is a little bit less straightforward. The answer is it depends. Because the good news is that what we're looking at when we're considering if the size of the system is changing is the AC nameplate rating of the inverter itself. So if you're not swapping out the inverter in your adding panels, they will stay in NIM 2. And with our SolarEdge Home Hub inverter and our SolarEdge Home battery, you can oversize that inverter by up to 200%. So that gives you a lot of room to add panels to that system without actually changing out the inverter. So that homeowner would be able to stay in NIM 2. But if you needed to switch out to a larger size inverter, that's going to put them into NIM 3. So good job. If you said NIM 2 or you said NIM 3, you're potentially correct in that scenario. So I wanted to reassure everybody that other states are still looking jealously at our market, even being in this NIM 3 scenario. And they're looking at us jealously because we have a lot of reasons for homeowners to install solar and install batteries. We have some of the highest utility rates in the nation. So we are averaging 7% increases this year, and in some areas as much as 30%. Utility rates are going up really, really quickly, especially due to interest rates. We've got the changing NEM 3 policy. So even though this policy is less attractive than the previous policy, a lot of customers don't closely follow net metering policy. So what you can use to reassure homeowners here is that if they do sign up under NIM 3, they're immune to policy changes for the next 9 years. And we can design a system that lets that homeowner become their own power plant and use that self-consumption model to get maximum return on investment for that system still. Also, in a lot of areas in California, we've got those emergency power shutdown events that are turning off power. We've also got an increase in severe weather events where people are losing power. So there's a lot of appetite for backup power as things are getting more unpredictable, and homeowners want to make sure that they can keep the lights on. So when we're looking at NIM 3, there are two basic types of customer that we're looking at. And the good news is that these profiles are going to seem pretty familiar. We've got the homeowner that has a lot of pain points around losing power. So what they're looking for primarily is backup power in an outage. They're focused on that control and predictability to be able to continue to run their home, even if the grid's being unpredictable. So the good news here is even if that's what they're looking for, they can still leverage that battery for self-consumption. But primarily what they are looking for is what we would consider a traditional battery system, the battery with backup. The other homeowner we're looking at, they are just looking for bill savings. They don't have a lot of pain points around backup at all. They're not really in an area where they're risking outage, or outage just hasn't been much of a concern for them. They're just looking to use that battery to help them save on their bill by utilizing self-consumption. The good news here, team, is these are the same customers. If we've been in solar for a while, we've been talking to these customers for the last few years. The only difference here is that the homeowner that's looking to just save on their bill, that traditionally would have been our PV only customer. And now we're changing and we're pivoting to help that customer self-consume using a battery. This is where I wanted to go over the different solutions that SolarEdge does offer and what they look like. And I want to be super clear about what the differences between these products are. If you look on the far right here, I'm going to go ahead and put my pointer on it. We've got the SolarEdge Home full backup system. So what we see here is we've got the SolarEdge Home Hub inverter. We've got the SolarEdge backup interface. And we've got 3 of our SolarEdge Home Hub or home batteries here. Now, when we bring it to the picture on the left here, the SolarEdge Home Rate Saver solution, there's a piece of equipment missing in this picture. Can anybody call out what piece of equipment we don't have in this picture? If you're thinking the backup interface, you're correct. The SolarEdge Home Rate Saver solution is a battery solution that's for self-consumption only. So to be incredibly clear, if a homeowner has this solution and the grid goes offline, they will not have power. This solution does not provide backup power. In this solution, we're just using the battery as a bucket to store energy. That way we can discharge that energy at times when rates are highest in order to kind of peak shave off of the bill. So here's how it works with the SolarEdge Rate Saver solution. During the day when the sun's up and that home is getting the maximum amount of solar power on the roof, we're using that power, number one, to run the home, and number two, we're using power to charge the solar battery. In an average scenario, it takes roughly in the range of 2 to 3 hours to charge up a battery to full. Then once we start getting into the mid-evening, when those rates are starting to reach their peak, that's when we're transitioning. And if the sun's still up, we're still going to continue using solar. We're going to do that until the sun is down and we're not generating anymore. But also, we're going to start using power from that battery at that time. That way, we're not touching the grid when rates are highest. We're powering the home with the battery instead of powering from the grid. Then when we get into the period where we're back to off-peak rates, we're going to continue to use the power from that battery until it's out. And then if we're not able to cover through the entire night, we're going to use rates when they're low again. Then we repeat the next morning. We're going to repeat that process day in and day out. So again, we're not using that battery for backup in this scenario. If the grid goes out, the homeowner would not have power. But what we are doing is we're helping a homeowner to become their own power plant. We're cycling that battery daily to make sure that homeowner isn't hitting those high rate times. So the tricky part here can be determining which one of the two customers we're talking to. And a lot of this is just based in your needs analysis. It's based in painting the picture with that homeowner. During your needs analysis, you want to make sure to ask some questions about blackouts. Try and find out what the pain points are. What was the last time you were in a blackout? How many blackouts have you experienced this year? What was most uncomfortable? If the power were to go out, what would you want to keep running? You want to build up some of these needs analysis questions to understand if there is an urgency for backup power there. Our primary candidate for our rate saver program is that they're not a homeowner that has any thoughts around backup power. They're not experiencing a lot of power outages. What they're looking to do is just to save money on their electric bill. In this case, our primary objectives, we don't want to use power from the grid, and we don't want to give power back to the grid when we're generating a lot of solar power. So we're installing that battery as a bucket to help them store power so that they have power to use during those high rates. So in sizing considerations here, it's completely different than what we do with battery backup. Critical loads isn't relevant anymore. Daily consumption habits are what are important. Our bucket, one battery is 10 kilowatt hours. So how much of their daily consumption is that 10 kilowatt hours going to cover is what our consideration is. And this can vary based on our homeowner's consumption profile. Again, our SolarEdge designer program has awesome modeling for NIM3 customers. I would definitely recommend taking your individual customers into designer and using that to calculate and recommend the amount of batteries it will need for a consumption only setup. So I want to do some math with you very quickly. What this model here is based on. We ran these numbers based on a cash only deal. There are no incentives rolled into these number calculations. So just wanted to have full disclosure there. We wanted to keep these numbers as simple as possible. What this is based on is a 10 kilowatt inverter with an 11.5K DC system size and 12,000 kilowatt hours of annual consumption here. So when we look on the left here, this is if we were to install a solar-only system with no batteries whatsoever, with a NIM3 rate structure. When we're looking at the payback period here, we can see it's 12.7 years. I don't know about this team, but I would probably have a really hard time selling a system to a homeowner and telling them they're not going to get a return on their investment for almost 13 years. But when we bring it over to the right here, there's some important things to point out. We have two batteries on both of these models that are on the right. When we're looking at the top here, one thing I want to point out is that the net payment or the total amount of the system has increased. We're up to 43,453 versus where we were at 32 with the solar only system. But even with the price increasing, if you look at the payback period, because we're able to utilize and use that battery to help our home become its own power plant, we've lowered that payback period 4 years, more than 4 years, in fact. So it's only 8.1 years in this model. And if the homeowner had a need for battery backup, but they're still going to use their batteries for self-consumption, it doesn't change the estimation a ton. It brings up to 8.7 years if there is a need for battery backup. In both scenarios, even though the price is going up, the total price is going up, the total value of the system is increasing substantially for that homeowner. We talked about those power hours in September, and I told you how we were going to get the most out of those. Just a quick comparison here. Here's how our battery is positioned to get the most out of those power hours. Our battery has a 10 kilowatt hour capacity compared to, I think we're specifically looking at Enphase here, another 10 kilowatt hour battery. Where we really stand out is in the continuous power of our battery. We have a 5 kilowatt continuous power versus a 3.8 continuous kilowatt power. What that means for a homeowner is that we have the capability to fully discharge that entire battery during those 2 hours, letting that homeowner take maximum advantage of those high export times. What that equates to is hundreds of dollars of difference annually, just from having the ability to fully dump that battery during that couple hour period. Excuse me for a second. Looks like my slide skipped around the wrong place. My apologies. All right, team. So we've covered a lot of information today. I just want to find out what questions we have. What have we not answered for you today? All right, so we've got a question in the chat box and a consumption situation, assuming self-consumption, where it's raining or otherwise not producing solar energy. Does the battery save power in the morning to use during peak hours? The answer to that, Greg, is yes. Any power beyond what is being used to power the home, as long as we're providing enough power, it's still going to be storing power in the battery in order to use when the rates are at their highest. So I believe, and Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong too, since it's lower peak hours, the priority is going to be filling the battery in the morning, since that's lower peak. So if it has to choose, it's going to choose filling the battery first. That way we have the battery amount for when the rates are the highest.
That is correct.
Okay, cool. Glad that I got that right. So the answer is that it's in that situation where it has to choose between, it's going to prioritize filling up the battery because the homeowner is going to save more money by eliminating the peak rates. All right, got a couple more questions coming in. What do we know regarding the consumption and backup? Will it still charge the EV charger? So the answer for that, Shauna, is if the homeowner is charging a car, as long as there's excess solar power, if they have our charger on solar boost mode, it'll still charge the car with the excess solar power. But in a self-consumption or backup scenario, that car can still charge and still operate just like any appliance in the home. It's just a matter of, especially in a backup scenario, that's a heavy load. So that's going to drain a lot of the battery. In a backup scenario, I wouldn't necessarily recommend charging your EV just because it's going to be such a large usage of power. But then again, it's all about having that conversation with the homeowner. Maybe that's a non-starter for them, and they're going to need to charge their EV. In that case, it would just be estimating to get them the necessary amount of batteries to meet that. Great question, Tony. If the customer picks the rate saver, can they add a battery backup later? Absolutely. That's one of the huge strengths of SolarEdge's technology. Since everything wires directly into the hub inverter, it's easy to go back to that customer as their needs increase and sell them add-on products. So absolutely, you can install that battery backup after if they decide that they need that in the future. We got Robert. Can we confidently estimate the monthly dollar cost savings when used for self-consumption? And Robert, what I would say here is that you can confidently put their consumption profile into the SolarEdge Designer tool. It's going to give you those numbers of what they're going to be saving annually. You can break that down to a month to month. But what I would explain to that homeowner, because what we've seen even before this new scenario is a lot of homeowners go solar and they're like, hey, I'm solar now. I'm going to turn up my air conditioning. I'm going to turn on a couple of appliances I wasn't going to turn on. And so that, if they're changing their consumption profile, just like with solar before, it's potentially going to change what they're going to get on the back end. So, based on what we know of their consumption profile, we can estimate based on that. So, we need to let that homeowner know that if their usage is staying about the same, this is what we're estimating. But if they're
Yeah,
going to increase that usage, it may not be quite the same. It sounds like Alex maybe has something to say here too. I'll turn it over to Alex.
yeah. I was just going to mention that on our designer profile, which we've been working with GDP on that, it's very accurate. So the moment you change a profile or you change the consumption, those numbers are going to alter as well as far as the leftover, the post solar bill to the utility company. It's fairly accurate compared to anything else that's on the market right now for proposals.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Looks like I have a question for Shauna. Do we have the math for this? I don't have it on hand, but the SolarEdge Designer tool does have it. What batteries would we sell for consumption in EV only? I'm going to tell you, Shauna, I'm a little opinionated. We've only got one battery, the SolarEdge home battery. That's the one I'm going to recommend. Robert, how can we get access to the Designer tool? Well, Robert, tell you what, I'm going to help everybody with that. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. If you scan this QR code, you're going to get access not only to the SolarEdge Designer tool with your monitoring portal account, but you also get access to all these cool NIM3 resources that we have on the screen. All you have to do is scan this QR code, and it's about a 10-second sign-up page, and you'll have access to all of that. And also, I know that we were wanting to get the customer support number for someone in the chat. Alex, could you get that? Or do you
Yeah,
have that handy rather?
I do. Yeah, give me a second. I will post it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, team. Any other questions at this time?
For Shauna's question, I just wanted to clarify. This Shauna Gonzalez question is, what batteries would you sell? Are we asking how many batteries you would sell, or particular to our brand?
Yeah, that's a good clarification question.
If the question is how many batteries, okay.
Got it. Okay, I see what you're saying there, Shauna. So the difference in the two system setups is not that they're different types of battery, Shauna. With the battery backup system, there's a backup interface, and that's what enables the backup. So if that homeowner has any need for backup power at all, I'd recommend doing the backup interface. If they're only looking for self-consumption, I would do just the battery. Also, is there a price difference between the three options? I just want to qualify here, Robert. Are we talking about the rate saver versus the full home backup? Okay, so yes, there is a price difference between the two. The backup interface adds costs, so it's going to be more expensive than the rate saver self consumption option because again, that's an additional piece of equipment, and that is actually a pretty pricey piece of equipment, both in install labor and in the cost of the equipment itself. So the self-consumption option is going to be the cheaper of the two options, and the backup with the battery backup is going to be the more expensive of the two options. That pricing will already be built in as well.